Yeah, I promise. After this, no more losing episodes. Yo, yo, what's up, good people?
Hello, hello,
We
hello. Welcome back. Welcome back.
back again. The boys from the Phantom Geek Zone.
Yeah.
So this time around, or before that, actually, we need to intro every single time. You know the thing with me in intros, right? It's that I get into that mindset of but people know
People
what this
know
is
us,
about, and but it's
what
like
about
nah,
the new people?
exactly, So if you've been there before, you know what this is about. And if you're a newbie, then essentially we're just a couple of geeks that figured, man, since we talk about this sort of stuff all the
We'll
time,
put it out there for you guys
let's
to
just
listen as well.
yeah, man, share with some people out there. And what's been interesting is as far as viewership and comments is that some people are geeks and others are. They're just like, no, just like to sit back and watch you guys do your your geeky things. I'm like, all right, cool. We're happy to welcome anyone. We're fully inclusive.
Yeah. It's the 21st century. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So essentially, what we do, for this particular segment of the channel is we go through some of our favorite comic book movies, and then we essentially just give our review. It's pretty much as simple as
And
that.
the current series we're on is Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we're
Yeah.
going from timeline-wise, not release date.
Yeah. So if
Captain-
you didn't catch it,
Yeah.
first, our first review, which was the previous one in the series, was in Captain America.
Yeah, the first Avenger, and
Yeah.
then today is Captain Marvel.
Yep. And then we'll just be going down, the timeline, as it were. And stay tuned to the channel, as now and then we'll also be introducing, other series. Because as you know, there's plenty of not many cinematic universes,
but comic book movies.
Plenty of comic book movies and franchises to follow through. And we're definitely going to be adding those in just to create some nice variety throughout, our channel.
For us as well.
Yeah. Just to avoid the monotony of the MCU, especially the fatigue, because there's quite a number of movies that they've churned out, and of course there's going to be many more to come. And then with that said, let's get into our review of Captain Marvel. So just to start it off, I'll essentially just break down what the story is about. We've got Carol Rivers, Danvers, Carol Danvers, who that VS part. I see the VRS and then it always.
I'm like, how did you extend? How did you put the second E in there? I'm like,
especially for people who supposedly speak English.
Yeah,
but
isn't it?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? Carol Danvers. She's, do you just say fighter pilot or she's a pilot in the Air Force?
I would say fighter. Yeah, like when I watched it gave me like Top Gun vibes.
Yeah.
With the old jackets and the motorbikes and whatnot.
So I think, man.
Army pilot would be.
If only for the purpose of this conversation, we'll refer to her, as a fighter pilot as far as her occupancy is concerned. So basically, we start off with her along with this race, this now an alien race of people, but they mixed. I wouldn't say human form. Some look human, some look alien. But anyway, and they refer to as the Creed. And her relationship with them, she doesn't really have her memories. She's got these super abilities, and they're helping to train her and just get her back to her strength.
And occasionally gets flashbacks.
Yeah, now and then there'll be some odd images that pop in her head. Now, as far as the Creed are concerned, they have this, okay, I suppose at this stage of the story, it's like the enemy race, which are the Skrulls. Now, then Carol is told that these guys are enemies and they have to go around wherever they find them, defeat them, kill them, whatever it takes. There's a particular code that comes in, and they're told that one of the guys, who's essentially like a spy, has found some of the Skrull members. Because, this is like, a race that's across the galaxy, different planets and so on. It's like, now I found them here, you guys can come through and then we can hoy an ambush. Only to find it's the reverse. Yeah. This was actually a trap set up by the Skrulls, because the Skrulls have shape-shifting abilities. Yes. So they called in the Creed, pretending to be one of them. And it wasn't necessarily a matter of, yes, it's an ambush. They didn't want to capture them. They were just specifically looking for Carol. And this is because she gives off this energy signal, which resembles an energy source that basically both parties are looking for, the Skrulls and the Creed, because this is an infinite stone. For those of you familiar with Thanos, it's one of the stones that he used as a source of not source of power, but source of next level of power.
Was it the
Because
cosmic energies of the universe.
yeah, this is actually one of. So whenever we talk about Infinity Stones, it was one of the key or the key elements in terms of creating the Big Bang, which then created the universe that we live in, and that's what everyone is after. Because ultimate source of power, And if you look around, even in our real world, we don't need to explain why people want power. It's just the thing that they do. Now, because Carol has, it's almost like a radiation energy that she's giving off, which matches that source of power. These guys are like, no, man, let's capture her and see if she can lead us to the energy source. Now, the energy source slash Infinity Stone in question is called the Tesseract. And, with this being episode
you would have seen it in
Captain America, because, similar thing happened in there where someone used it as a source of power as well. Now, they end up capturing Carol, and they have this ability to get into a person's mind and go through your memories, literally like a videotape. The guy was talking about, hey, go back, go forward, zoom in, and
movie of your life.
I was just waiting for him to say enhance, because all these movies, they'll take an image and then it'll be the worst pixelated picture, but as soon as they say enhance, So it's a shame he didn't, because he did say focus on the emblem. He wanted to know what that symbol was, and I was like, please say enhance. But anyways, and the person in the video, as we later find out, but I suppose at this point of the story, she is a mentor to Carol, and they are familiar with that person, and they're like, no, man, what's going on here? Let's just follow this person and see what the story is. But then, of course, before they get too much information, she breaks free and then ends up crashing on Earth.
Yes, in 1995.
Yes, I was gonna say this takes place in 1995, and so of course they have to throw all sorts of retro references.
Blockbuster.
She fell into Blockbuster, and then
Radio Shack.
Radio Shack is where she went to go get her gadgets. Which Radio Shack, if you don't know, it's sort of like the. I mean, I wanted to say Musica for the gadget space, but then
isn't it just an electronic store?
We don't have Musica anymore. I just wanted to something that people can easily recall. But essentially, it's a very popular electronic store franchise. I think they may not even be around anymore.
Blockbuster.
Blockbuster definitely went bust, but so did Radio Shack. But anyway, so that's then why it's a fun Easter egg, if you will, in the movie. And lo and behold, who stumbles upon her but our very own Nick Fury, So SHIELD, which is the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division, is a, secret government department that, she is the first alien encounter. What do we describe SHIELD as? Because, now it's it's an alien division of the government, but at the time...
Wasn't it dealing with... He mentioned it's dealing with threats outside of our
normal
country.
scope. Because remember, even in Captain America, they were still established and they helped in the war and so on. So it's as they say, it's strategic, but more in the sense of just defending the country against threats that say the military or your average police won't necessarily be able to deal with. So we get to see Nick Fury back in his younger days, and we also get to see Nick Coulson. Granted, he did more of a cameo in this movie. But then, fast forward a bit, and of course, it's the whole thing of, okay, you just crashed on Earth. Can we trust you? Who are you? What's going on? And before long, the Skrulls come through, who are still regarded as an enemy. And then, there's all sorts of chases happening. Then later, it turns out that the Creed, who were the people that rescued Carol, are actually the bad guys of the story, whereas the Skrulls are refugees. These guys are victims that keep having to run away from the Creed, who have been, gunning after them, killing their people, because they go around conquering planets across the galaxy. And the guy who's putting the strings, behind the Creed is one of Thanos's henchmen. Ronan, who also helped with,
you would have seen him in
Guardians of the Galaxy. So, these guys are space titans or space pirates, if you will. And the Creed were just trying to survive and forever fleeing for their lives. And anything bad we've seen them do is in defense of themselves. And then Carol, switches teams essentially and sticks with the Skrulls and fights against the Creed. And then at the end, of course, she then defeats the Creed. Now, one of the key elements as far as that portrayal is concerned is the fact that the person who was training her, basically acting as her mentor, is then the very person who was scheming against her and only
Trying to abuse her power, yeah.
yeah, trying to abuse her power and only kept her close so that he could also get to the same power source, the Infinity Stone, aka the Tesseract. And yeah, that pretty much then sums it up as far as the story is concerned.
Nice brief, covers most of the points.
Yeah, and then I think as far as thoughts on the movie.
I mean, so like, I think of all the Marvel movies, it's one of the lowest ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's simply because we always discuss this on this channel. Well-defined villain,
yeah,
clear, concise storyline,
yeah.
and didn't have either of that. And I don't know, there's something else I know we usually discuss, but I cannot.
It would be like the casting, the chemistry of the characters, and
yeah. So the casting was great.
Yeah.
Each character within itself, they did what they needed to do, but with each other, it wasn't hitting.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot going on, and it just wasn't meshing together.
Yeah.
So I didn't enjoy that, but yeah, I think it's just it's a mid movie.
Yeah, they definitely could have, they definitely could have done a better job. And I suppose we'll just get into the specifics of, why we feel that it wasn't at the level it was meant to be. And now, bear in mind, right, because we are rearranging all the releases in terms of the order of events. But if you look at order of release, this movie came out right between, Infinity War and Endgame.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you recall, at the end of Infinity War, as Nick Fury's fading away, he hits the beeper and signals to Carol, aka Captain Marvel. Signals to Captain Marvel that, we need you, come through. So this was then the movie to show us, okay, who's this person that Nick Fury deems as the one to come and save us, And aside from just being an origin story, we needed them to convince us why this hero is so badass that they're the ones that are gonna come and defeat Thanos, And so I think as far as one of the goals it was meant to achieve, they kind of sort of missed the mark on that one. And again, getting into some detail where that is concerned, the thing for me is that at every turn there was such an opportunity to do a little more.
Yeah.
And I feel like they fell short of it, And one of the examples I always like to make as far as showing that this movie didn't do what it was meant to do is, we know Samuel Jackson is a fantastic actor, charismatic, great energy, and so on. But even watching him in this movie, I didn't feel that punch.
Yeah.
And you need to record, hey, there's an art of subtlety where acting is concerned. Sometimes, when you say about a character that, they were supposed to give me more, but I didn't get that. It's not a matter of being larger than life and being all in your face. Because Nick Fury was never that to begin with. He'd always just come through.
He's a stoic character.
Yeah, man. Move the pieces where they need to be so that they can go and do their thing. But he's always had great presence. So here, there was presence in terms of real estate. Like, we saw him throughout the entire movie. But in terms of influencing, changing things, but even the portrayal of it, granted, you could say this is, it's only at the very end of this movie where he
becomes Nick Fury.
Yeah, and that's also where he creates, the Avengers Initiative. But this guy, he's a former spy. Oh, he's still a spy, I suppose, essentially. But he was a former soldier. He was a proper badass, But I feel like we got the desk clerk version of him. There wasn't any.
He was obsessed with cats for some reason.
Man, don't even get me started, So we have Nick Fury, this great former general and so on, who's now a desk clerk. No explanation as to why. Did he? How it is.
Yeah, injured on duty or
what's this? The classic cop movies. You go out of scope what you're meant to do, and you fail the mission, and they're like, "That's it, I'm benching you," and they sent him to desk duty. There wasn't any sort of explanation as far as why this guy went from this rank to desk clerk. even though he's, what was he? He wasn't director then, eh? Of
No,
Shield.
no, no, no. It was Talos.
Talos was the director.
Yeah, well, not Talos himself, but the
Yeah,
guy.
the actual,
Yeah,
actual. Oh, okay, okay.
yeah,
I see what you mean. So, yeah, man, there was context missing there from history because, again, we know him as the established Nick
yeah.
Fury. So, if you're gonna go back,
Bald
help
head,
to
badass. Yeah,
MFA,
MF, yeah,
yeah, you need to, properly connect those dots for us. Yes, at the end they show,
yeah.
oh, this is why he creates the Adventures Initiative. That's great, but we needed the beginning of his story to also, be
And
fleshed out a
also,
bit.
I mean, we did discuss this. It's like this was kind of his like backstory.
Yeah.
As much as it was Carol Danvers, it was also Nick Fury.
Yes, yes.
And
But
then
I
they missed a cheat. It's like I know we discussed it with how he lost his eye. It could have been
yes,
could have
it
like
was.
given us a good backstory, or like a flashback within a flashback type
I
story.
can't remember the movie, but yeah, someone asked him, "So what happened to your eye?" And he's like, I trusted the wrong person. So as soon as I heard that, I was so excited. I'm like, oh man,
And he gets
in the
some.
past, was it like his friend who ended up betraying him, or was it a different
Yeah.
situation? But I just assumed it would be a badass story, only to find, some alien cat scratched his eye out. And I mean, I don't care that it's alien. It's still a cat that scratched his eye out. And I think for Nick Fury, he deserved a lot better.
Yeah.
Even if it was from this movie itself. I mean, you're fighting two alien races
Yeah.
at some point.
Like who are much bigger threats than you are. Like
Yes,
technology
man.
is so much further ahead at this point.
And yeah, there was like, nope, we're gonna leave it to the cat. And yeah, I just wasn't happy at all about that.
That's a Disneyism, eh?
And there's of course the element of Phil Coulson. We got just a young taste, he did a bit of a
I think
cameo.
for him it was enough.
I was gonna say that, the more I think about it, I'm like, I'm not mad at it, we just see him in his younger years. Okay, cool.
It's the same Coulson in Iron Man 1. Like
Yeah.
he's got that presence, but he's still like unsure.
And I get what I will say. They alluded to it, but I think, and as I said, right, my main issue about this movie, it's like they come right up to a particular line and then they like backtrack or they just stay there instead of really going for it. And interestingly enough, so at the end of the movie, I saw there were two directors, there were three writers, and there were about 5 or 6 people who came up with the story. So I'm like,
That's a lot of people.
if you want to say too many cooks in the kitchen, I think this is a great example of what happened. They are lucky if you think about it, because usually the whole too many cooks thing leads to a disaster.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say this is a disaster per se. It was just so much opportunity wasted, but essentially due to the same reason,
Especially they didn't showcase. Maybe they did for a little bit at the end of the movie with Carol, showcasing her powers. Like
yeah.
other than that, I didn't see
And
it didn't feel like she's the world beater she's supposed to.
There were definitely plenty of opportunities
yeah.
to do so as well, right? But just to finish off with Coulson quickly, they alluded to it as far as, why he and Nick Fury, because again, if you recall, Nick Fury in present day, he's a director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then Coulson is more the face, he's the guy who interacts a lot more
he's
with...
like Fury's number 2.
Yeah, he's become Fury's number 2, his bureaucratic number 2, and then Maria Hill is his muscular number 2. So what was I going to say? Yeah, so we know that they have a tight-knit relationship given the trust that he has. Now in this movie, which is a flashback, they show Coulson letting Fury go, because at one point Fury was considered, I wouldn't go as far as to say enemy, but because he was, closely linked to this alien who just crash landed here, they were asking too many questions. They wanted to detain them, and Coulson was the person who trapped them. And instead of keeping them, he was like, "Nah, I'm just gonna let you all go." So that in itself, especially because Fury said he's a new guy.
Yeah,
so
he doesn't owe me anything.
When you knew, you're gonna be like, "Hey, over here," because why are you showing allegiance to any particular individual? So just to tighten up the motivation over there, I would have loved to see what Fury did or what happened. Even if Coulson, sometimes they'll do that, and then later on in the movie, then the guy's like, "Hey man, why didn't you let me go?" And he's like, "Ah man, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3." That conversation could have helped to do so many things, and that's part of my issue. Like the simplicity with which you could have solved some of these problems make them all the much worse for me. But anyway, so yeah, Coulson, brief appearance, but not mad at it at all. You gotta say RIP to the legend Stan Lee.
Yes,
You know,
this was the first one.
is his final
Final
cameo.
cameo, and they had a nice
That-
tribute at the beginning.
Yeah, his final cameo, and yeah, nice, quick as per usual. And I remember when I saw him, like even in real time when the movie had come out, I was like, ah man, Stan, you're not gonna get to see this anymore. But shout out to him because, of course, he's one of the key figures that was involved in creating, you know, not necessarily not only the MCU as we know it, but just the origins
Comics,
of Marvel
he's one of the
Comics.
pioneers.
A lot of our favorite characters, you know,
He's
he
created,
gave the backstory or did a lot in terms of creating them and bringing them to life. And as geeks in particular, we certainly, you know,
we pay homage to the ones that gave us what we enjoy.
Yeah, man, you know, we could not be more grateful to him. And then I guess, okay, we'll do one or two side characters, then we'll finish off with, you know, the lead. Jude Law was in this movie, and what's his thingy again? Yon Rock.
Yeah, so he was what, Carol's mentor.
Yeah,
I was introduced as Carol's mentor, and then like halfway through the movie when she gets her memory back.
Then we realize he was essentially the villain of the story, and as you've mentioned before, you know, we always say in these, especially superhero movies, the movie's as good as its villain, the villain is as good as their motivation. And sometimes the villain isn't always, you know, a person. It's the opposing force, whether it's an ideology, as with Captain America. You know, Red Skull's villain technically, but I think the more active villain was the idea of war and oppression and, you know, the Nazis and just shutting that whole thing down. And it worked pretty well over there. Whereas over here, the idea of what someone is fighting against, I don't think it hit as hard as it should. And okay, granted, I said we'll leave, you know, the Captain Marvel for the end, but obviously she interacts with other characters. So one of the main things for me that I realized was a letdown is, look, so with Brie Larson, I always confuse her name with Alison Brie. Like, I know the exact faces, I know exactly what each one was involved in, but whenever I need to say the name, I'll pause because I'm like, Brie Larson, Alison Brie, you know. So with Brie Larson and the casting in this movie, or rather the portrayal in the movie, there's been all sorts of, you know, controversy since the very beginning. You know, when the movie dropped, people say, no man, she's not a good actor and this and that, and by no means is she a bad actor. She's won Oscars. Yeah, won Oscars, you know, Oscar nominated and winning movies, and across the board, she's done some amazing work. And I hate how people are so dismissive to be like, if the movie's bad, it's because, don't do the diversity thing, don't cast women, don't cast whatever, you know. And I mean, as a black person, I take particular issue with it because I know they did a lot of that with black movies as well for a good while, where people would act as though a movie with black people would do bad only because there's black people in it. It's like, no, if you make a shitty movie, it's going to be bad. Yeah. Especially because they don't hold, you know, everyone else to the same scrutiny. If you think about, even within the MCU, or if you want to talk about all the Marvel movies, whenever there'd be a flop, people are like, oh, you guys did the character injustice. They're not going to say, why did you cast a white guy and all of those sort of things, you know. And so I think, she's received a lot of unfair criticism. But unfortunately, that being said, in as much as everyone else had their faults as far as their portrayals, the same can be said for her as well. And one of the balls that they dropped for me, since we also, you know, talk about Yon Rock, is that this movie, right? So her being a supposedly bad actress in this, in the beginning, or the first half of the movie, how I interpreted that was, because I also have a bit of a problem here and there where she's not, you know, emoting as much as she should be. She's not even evoking emotions from us when she should be. For instance, when her mentor died, I mean, the two of them were in, you know, a spaceship and then it crashed. She died in her arms. But I didn't feel like she's losing someone that close to her, you know. And the betrayal from the mentor, I don't know if I really felt, even when, because she became aware of the betrayal when she was very far from Yon Rock, but when they first met after that,
she wasn't like
the anger or the pain or whatever you wanted to, you know, show that as. I didn't get any sense of true emotion. But now, as far as the movie itself, in the beginning, right, when she isn't necessarily, you know, being emotive or whatever, I could now chalk it up to her memory loss. She doesn't have a true sense of who she is. She's lost in the world. I mean, if I wake up in Cape Town not knowing who I am, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be, you know, off the rails a bit. Imagine being in space and not knowing who the hell.
Bro.
not knowing who the hell
planets,
you are.
different
A whole other
species,
race is now
different
taking care of
species.
you, and you're now meeting a second race on top of that that's shape shifting and all these crazy things. Like, I'll be losing my mind. So that first half, I'm like, yeah, man, she's a
Okay.
fish out of water, so I can understand. My bigger issue is, as soon as the memories came through, as soon as she got a better hold of the powers, that's where the movie was supposed to turn into something else on all fronts. She was supposed to then fully embody the character,
Yeah.
and even on Jude Law's side, that's where he was
he-
supposed to also go like full villain.
yeah.
Because in the beginning he's nice because it's deceptive, but his portrayal didn't change one bit. It was the exact same
the same,
person.
yeah.
So I'm like, what do you mean? If you're deceiving someone and they find out what's what, you don't have to hide and hold back anymore. Let it out. So yeah, I was disappointed like that they didn't shift even just the general tone of the movie. Everything in that movie remained exactly the same way, as though nothing major had happened. So yeah, I took some issue with that. And again, just as with Samuel Jackson, it takes a lot to create a movie where I look at Drew like, I've seen about a handful of his movies, but each and every single time he always pulls
good,
through.
man.
Which is why, for me, I think the fault lies more, as I've said, too many cooks in the kitchen. It's the writing and the direction. And you must remember, with Marvel, even if you have one writer, one director, they'll still come through and have their influence. A lot of directors afterwards will come through and say whether it's why they left the movie. Some people leave, whether it's at the beginning or in the middle of directing, or some, even if they stay throughout the process, they'll be like, it wasn't enjoyable because these guys will try and involve us. People at the last minute will be told, no man, you have to put this character in because once you connect it to so that was just yet another chef in that kitchen. Yeah, man. So the ball was certainly dropped. And I mean, we touched on a bit about the chemistry among the characters earlier on. Again, same thing. In the beginning, you have Captain Marvel, lost her memories and all of that, fine. But as soon as the memories are back, I didn't get the sense that her and Rambo were like best friends. The relationship remained exactly the same. There wasn't that moment of clicking like, oh, my friend, hey! And then, even they...
Or just a flooding of flashbacks, just, to better times or something. Yeah, just
give us context into that relationship. I think of everyone probably had the best chemistry with the child.
Yeah.
It was the kid, and then Nick Fury is up there as well. But yeah, her own best friend, even the whole thing where they were discussing that, okay, we know where the Tesseract is, let's go and find it. And Maria Rambo was thinking, should I, shouldn't I? It didn't really feel as though there's a proper emotional tug of war happening in terms of helping my best friend versus taking care of my child. And I'm like, come on, you guys were so tight and so close. She even said, they didn't believe that she was really dead.
Yeah.
And yeah, so many missed opportunities where this thing is concerned. And for me, what kind of adds the insult to injury is that I'm not even saying change the story and do something else. No, this very story just could have been done, a lot better. And I guess we could get into Captain Marvel a bit more now as a character. One of the things for me, you touched on something that I felt passionate about in terms of the portrayal in this, which is when she finally got a hold of her powers. There was supposed to be, because here's the thing with superhero movies, right? And you touched on this even with Captain America. There's that thing about the first, whether it's the first time we see a costume, the first time we see your display of power, or how you get your powers. Those elements are very, very key. So now,
quite meh. It's like, there's an explosion.
With Captain Marvel, as far as how she got them, I was like, okay, I'm not mad at it, fine, especially because there was more of a flashback thing.
It's an accident as well. Like
there's the accident part, which you've seen many times. And there's also the element of when she actually embodies, again, the moniker of Captain Marvel, in terms of her powers being released, because when the Kree captured her, they suppressed her powers, because, I mean, she's among the most strongest beings in the universe.
Infinity Stone.
Yeah, so when her powers ended up getting fully unleashed, what they chose to do as far as the display of that, she crashed through a couple of spaceships, she like deflected a missile or whatever, and I'm like, ah. And the thing is, fine, the Creed weren't that powerful. There's more, weapon-based type of thing, but there was still an opportunity to give us a great fight scene there. We didn't get that, but upon watching it again, I was like, I was almost more mad because I realized Ronan could have been that person.
Yes.
I don't know why Ronan had to turn around. And here's the thing, right? Because remember, when we go back to order of release, Guardians of the Galaxy drops 2014.
Yeah.
And then...
So we know Ronan's a powerful being before he gets an Infinity Stone.
And now the thing is with this movie, which came out 3 years later, 2017, but you're showing him as a throwback to back then. My problem is, it doesn't matter that we're seeing a Ronan who's younger than the one we saw in Guardians.
Yeah.
He's still hella powerful, which is why he's got this race under his thumb. You were supposed to show that, especially because even in his movie, Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't know if we got a proper display of power from him, right? Like, we're going to get to reviewing it on its own, of course, but if I think about it, I'm like, so in none of the movies he appears in, is he going to be a badass? And yeah, I think I just took issue with that, especially because if you think of...
And then turn tail and run back. Like, that would have made more sense. Like, you just play a few ships, then what?
Even if he had lost or whatever would have happened, I just wanted to see a proper clash of strength, because the other thing about that whole, great villain, whatnot, is that you need to be a counterpart, i.e. the other side of the coin where the hero is concerned, where you guys are like matched up as far as your physical strength, your mental abilities, like whatever it is.
Your motivation.
There just has to be something there. The motivations. Sometimes you have people who, whether it's like grew up together or got their powers together or something, and then they get on opposite force. But the point is, you're pretty much neck and neck, and only at the end does the hero come out on top. So yeah, there was certainly another ball that they dropped with this movie, unfortunately, and. Yeah, man, I think that will give some context in terms of why it's not really raved about as far as everyone else is concerned. We've got the sequel coming out in a couple of weeks, actually.
Now in November.
Just around the corner, yeah. And I don't know how I feel about it, because here's the thing. It's meant to be a redemption movie for the Captain Marvel character. But we know what phase Marvel is in. They're kind of sort of figuring themselves out. It's only now that trying to clean up house and revamp and rework things. They've said they're not going to release as much material.
They're going to shorter. This one apparently is going to be shorter than
about
movies,
an hour and a half, give or take.
So like a whole hour less than most of the releases recently.
Yeah, and there was a headline that I saw where they just straight up said this is going to be a fun, goofy movie, and I'm like, ugh. So you're leaning right into the thing that we tend to have an issue with. And ironically, this movie came out just before Marvel leaned in hard on the whole unnecessary comedy thing.
Yeah, it was before Ragnarok, eh?
Yeah, it was before Ragnarok. So in terms of the tone of the movie, it was still okay. Now we're in this, new season of Marvel, if you will, where everything just has to be funny unnecessarily and whatnot. And even her as a character, yes, she was.
I guess it's Disney.
She had that sarcastic side of her, the deadpan delivery,
that's carried through all the movies she's been in.
Yes.
So that's a character trait, which I don't mind. I enjoy that.
But now what they're implying about this being a fun, goofy movie is on the other end of the spectrum, which isn't even true to character. So I'm a bit worried about how it's going to turn out. But of course, we're going to check it out, and of course, we're going to be dropping a review on that. Yep. So yeah, stick around. I don't know if there's any other final thoughts you would like to add?
No, any other things like cameos or callbacks? Well, cameos I think we covered.
I don't think there's like anything that necessarily stood out or and yeah, man, origin movies as a whole, like look, we definitely got something amazing in Iron Man. We'll be talking about that soon.
And
Captain America is certainly not too far off, but in general, I've come to realize that it's not often that you get great origin movies. I've come to accept that all of them are just going to be okay. But the issue with me and this one is that it fell a bit short of even okay. So yeah, that being said, you want to give your rating?
I think 5.5.
Yeah.
And I think I'm being generous.
Nah.
It's a nice movie to watch if you've got nothing to do.
Yeah.
It gives you insight. You don't really need to. It doesn't really fit into the whole. I mean, you can watch it as a standalone.
It can be watched as a standalone. Yeah, which I suppose is one of the things I appreciated about it is that it wasn't a matter of who's this one? What movie was he in and whatnot? Exactly. No. They let her have her own stage, which isn't necessarily going to be the case in the sequel, it seems. But
and the callbacks are if you've watched the universe. If you don't know anything and Nick Fury is a character. Cool.
Yeah, if you haven't watched anything else, you still are able to follow, fairly well what's going on in this movie. So there's that. And then I think my rating, man, I'm just gonna have to go with the 4.5.
Yeah,
It's fell short, and I think thus far probably the weakest. Certainly as far as what we've
Yeah.
reviewed, but even if I think in general with all the movies that they've released, and again for context, Infinity
Yeah.
War, which is top three hands down, and it's gonna be even that you need to convince me why it's top three and not just
it's
one.
hard.
But
That's a tough act to follow as
that's
well. Like,
that's a separate discussion. It is, but I mean, we also had Black Panther came out just before, but it didn't feel like it was far off as far as the bar. Even if you think about it retroactively, because again, it was Black Panther and then Infinity War and then Captain Marvel and then Endgame. And I think if you look at the standard that you guys had set at the time,
yeah,
you failed to live up to this with this movie. Hence the rating. But we'll have to wait and see if the sequel is going to live up. And yeah, that's that for our review of this. Stick around on the channel. After this,
Yeah.
we're gonna be dropping Iron Man. I
yeah,
believe.
Iron Man,
Yeah.
Iron Man 1, Iron Man
Iron
1.
Man 1 now, order of events.
Yeah.
Pretty excited for that
And
one.
I know we wanted to do a little rolling tier list.
Yeah, as
going.
far
So
as where
obviously
we
there's two
rank
so
it,
far.
there's only Captain America and Captain Marvel released thus far.
So Captain
Without
A,
a doubt, Captain
America
America is number
1,
one.
and
This is number 2, and then we'll update the list with as we go along, we'll just keep shuffling the movies around and let you know what's what. And I really actually forgot to even intro ourselves at the beginning, but I'm Izzy.
I'm Riyaal.
And this has been the Phantom Geek Zone. Thanks so much for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button over there. Feel free to drop any comments if you agree, if you disagree, as well as suggestions within this realm of movies that we're obviously focusing on. And we'll definitely hop onto that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you next time.
Peace.
See you guys.